let him get started, and so we can get everyone off the call in a timely fashion. Thank you very much.
I don't know how they do it with a personal printer. Actually, I have to ask my wife.
If you are on the call, I'd like to remind you to please mute your phone. And okay, so from an agenda perspective, what we're going to do is just cover a few introductions in terms of who we are and all that kind of thing. I am going to cover a significant number of the Exact Macola 10 differences, both from Progression and from ES. And then once we kind of have that in our minds, cover a fairly brief but as comprehensive as possible an overview demo. It'll be about 10 or 15 minutes.
You know what? I don't think that's...
All right, I guess I'm going to start again with what the agenda is. The introductions, differences between Exact Macola 10 and Progression and ES, a brief demo, why I think it's important to consider a business process assessment, some considerations for data conversion and upgrading, how to go about becoming trained on all of the new features and navigation and such within EM10, and there's a few other details that we'll clean up, and then we'll discuss what the special deal is that Exact is currently offering. So the Ativo Group is one of the largest Exact resellers. Our focus is implementation, training, and support for all of the Exact Macola products, such as Synergy, the Exact WMS system, the WISES WMS system, Datamasons EDI, BirdDog e-commerce, you name it, all of the pieces and parts. We've been doing this since 1992, going all the way back to version 5. Our focus has been largely manufacturing and distributors. No big surprise there. But we do have a number of service companies that also utilize the software in a number of ways that would kind of surprise you. Over the years, we've kind of perfected the process of doing a business process assessment with our clients and providing process improvement consulting. The goal there, obviously, is to best utilize the software to get the highest return on investment and the lowest cost of operations. We also recognized a couple of years ago that our technology is moving to cloud hosting. So we jumped on that bandwagon pretty early. We're currently the largest provider of Exact Macola cloud hosting, and have pretty much hosted every flavor, and our clients are just absolutely loving the fact that they don't have an IT department any longer. We're headquartered in Orange County, California, but as our customers became nationwide and people found us, our resources started becoming nationwide as well. So our support and reach is throughout the continental United States. So a little bit about Exact Macola. You're probably wondering, hey, what is up with Macola? We keep hearing things in the news and so on, but perhaps many of you remember that Macola itself as a software goes all the way back to 1982. That's like 43 years of ERP experience. That's the original building in Marion, Ohio. And I don't know if anyone knew this, but Macola came from the original name, Machine Computer Lab, and that's what it stands for. Fast forward to 2015, Exact Macola's headquarters are still in Ohio, now in Dublin, Ohio. In 2001, Exact Software purchased Macola Software. You all recall that. And in 2014, APAX Partners purchased what was then all of the outstanding stock of the public company Exact Software and took it private. APAX Partners is an equity investment firm. Their goal is to buy growth firms that have significant potential in the marketplace. They're an international company. They have other investments like Exact Macola in their portfolio. The largest, which you probably recognize, is Epicor. And their goal is not to flip it like a venture capitalist would. Their goal is to invest in the software in terms of both product development and marketing and support and resources in order to return the highest possible investment for their equity investors. Last week was the partner conference. I had the privilege to attend that. It was held in Santa Barbara, and the Exact management team was very proud to announce some significant budget improvement initiatives that APAX Partners has approved, both on the product development side as well as all of the infrastructure around growing the Macola business. So that's all very good news. We need to know that, hey, the partner that we've kind of all invested ourselves in is strong and growing. This is just a little bit more about APAX Partners. You can find them online and read about their entire portfolio and the kind of investments and strategy that they take. So you might ask, well, what's the big deal about Exact Macola 10? Well, way back when, many of the folks in this call invested in this software called Progression, software you'll never outgrow. And it was really basic transportation, very much like your grandfather's Buick. That's a 1938 Buick. It's got a flathead straight 8 in it. It's got an automatic transmission. It's pretty comfortable in the back seat, but it takes a little bit of work to drive it. And there's no air conditioning, there's no creature comforts. Fast forward to the early 90s, and all of a sudden we started seeing Windows-based software, and we started getting some creature comforts. And both Progression and Macola ES gave us some of those creature comforts. But it's very much like your father's Oldsmobile. It's big. It only has a cassette deck. It doesn't even have a CD player, no Sirius XM, no backup camera. It just is your father's Oldsmobile. Exact Macola 10 is definitely not your father's Oldsmobile. This is the next level of ERP experience and technology. This is something that is a major rewrite of the software that adds significant features and growth opportunities for things that are demanded today or are just becoming part of our natural way of life. You couldn't tell me in 1998 that every man, woman, and child was going to have a cell phone in his pocket with more power than the computers that were on the space shuttle that recently just got retired. And the kinds of things that Exact Macola 10 is now addressing is not just ERP and accounting. It's the complete cycle of fundamental business operations. Whether it starts out as customer relationship management with marketing and sales opportunity management, to project management, to basic manufacturing and distribution, accounting, finance, quality management, human resources management. The entire Macola suite is now sold as a bundled user price. So if you don't need a specific kind of functionality today, it's still going to be there if you need to use it in the future. If I could bring up another schedule for us. So these are the applications that are included with the system. So if you were to buy the system, and let's say you were going to spend, it was going to be a small investment, let's say it maybe 10 users, you would pay something just under $2,000 per user. With that, you would get every single financial application, payroll, human resources, assets, projects, currency manager, you name it. You would get all of the distribution applications. What I'm referring to when I'm talking about accounting and distribution, this is now referred to as core ERP. The credit card processing is all included now, at least through Ativo. Manufacturing applications, the bill of material, production order processing, the kind of things that you're currently using, plus all of the more advanced applications like material requirements planning, shop floor control, quality measurement. There's a new application to deal with most test results and so forth. Now, what is now added as well as an integral part is what we refer to as business process management. CRM, or customer relationship management, is a process. It starts out with marketing to find those people that may be interested in our goods or services, and then reaching out to them and generating interest, and then following up on that interest and quoting them and doing whatever it takes to turn them into a customer. Workflow management. In every organization, even in your household, there's workflow. A good example of that is a vacation request. In many of your organizations, a vacation request is a paper form that has to be filled out, which the employee completes or sends off as an email to their manager. Their manager may or not be in the office to get the email, and doesn't know if the employee has any entitlements coming to them or what their schedule is, and then forwards it off to human resources, hopefully in a timely manner, to deduct from their vacation pay. In electronic workflow, it's entered through the system. It knows that I report to my manager because human resources is part of it, and whoever Len Rio reports to is part of his record, and that my manager can see whether or not I have any entitlements because it's right there in front of them, and when he approves it, it notifies both me and human resources so that I can be, I'm not wondering, hey, what happened with that request? So workflow can be very simple or it can be very complex. But the capabilities of workflow management are all built in and tightly integrated with everything in the core ERP, such as order entry and purchasing. Think requisition processing. If I need a requisition, if I just open up a request, select the item, select the vendor, even recommend the price and so forth, and forward it on to purchasing, they can convert that requisition directly into a PO and know exactly where it all came from. Integrated document management is absolutely critical in today's business world. There are so few documents coming to us, so many fewer documents, I should say, that are paper-based. I always recommend, by the way, that you utilize EM10 with 2 monitors so that you can have source documents up on one monitor and whatever process you're doing on another monitor. Project management, all-inclusive, so that whether it's just managing the expenses of a trade show or managing all of the details of a complex quoting process for a customer, we can keep a great big electronic paperclip on every communication document and action item that has to be taken care of. The Exact Macola 10 also includes the Exact Event Manager with unlimited events. The Event Manager is I call it the watchdog and the slave. I want to set the Event Manager to look for customers that are approaching their credit limit so that I can be proactive and make sure that I'm going to get a payment in before their next order goes on hold. I'm looking for items that have reached their reorder level, so I don't wait until next Wednesday when I do the final report and review of items I have to order. I'm looking for items that have gone negative in inventory, indicating some kind of a problem. Those are alerts. But there's other things, too, that Event Manager can do for us, such as auto-emailing order acknowledgments. Or when I enter a purchase order, I want to auto-email that PO. I don't want to have to print it out and scan it and attach it and so on. I want it just to happen in the background. And that's what my slave does for me in an unlimited number of tasks. And it never calls in sick, and it never hands me a lawsuit. I love that Event Manager. Now, the real magic in Exact Macola 10 are the configurable workspaces. If you walked into the shop of a master craftsman, and he's sitting at his bench, around him would be all of the tools that he needs to do his job. That's what a workspace is. The controller has one giant pegboard, if you will, with all of the things that he needs to keep his eyes on and all of the tasks, access to all of the tasks that he needs to do. We're going to see those in a second. And then there's all of the kinds of things that you might need, including the flexibility customization tool, so that and the SDK client, so that we can continue to personalize and customize the system to meet your specific needs. So, quite a value for, I think, the same amount of money, for a lot more money that you would have spent a couple of years ago to get all of that. It's now a very, very valuable software solution. So how is it different than Progression in the finance area? I mentioned workspaces. You'll see that in a second. It's a major improvement in the user experience. The general ledger is very different, and that I'll also present to you. One of the things that I really like about the Exact Macola 10, and this was introduced with ES, is that there are no subledgers. The entire system is pretty much real time. You do have to post cash transactions before they are recognized, but and even within the financial statements, you can see unprocessed entries. So there's no long posting process to go through. The whole month-end, year-end process is like a snap. If it took you 8 hours to do a Progression month-end, it takes you an hour to do an Exact Macola 10 month-end. Financial reporting is no longer those crazy specifications and layouts and all that awkward COBOL-looking financial statement. It's all done within Excel. Cash flow management, the system was actually built based on cash flow, and it's an integral part of the system, not a bolt-on bank book afterthought. What you'll start seeing, too, within the system are web forms or browser screens to do simple things like accounts payable entry. And a lot of input has been taken from the user community. For example, if you receive a lot of lots on any given purchase order receipt, each one of those has to be entered in Progression as one entry after the other. Now it's a grid to be able to select a whole series of receivers that represent an individual lot in order to satisfy a voucher entry. So a lot of user functionality things have been addressed as well. In operations, you've got a 30-character item code. significant reporting improvements. The access to information is night and day different. Web forms for order entry, for purchase order, the quality management system, mobile applications so that you can take an iPad to the trade show and be able to take orders and send off order acknowledgments right from that trade show floor. And as I mentioned, I can't say enough about workspaces and what an improvement in the user experience that is. So just a little bit of business to think about too. You know, where is APAX Partners and Exact Macola's board pushing for development? It's going to Exact Macola 10, and there's a reason for that. Number one, they can't do things like order entry as a web service without replacing the entire undercarriage. So if you think about the old COBOL programs that have been running Progression and Macola ES, those don't lend themselves to integration with a web service. However, the .NET programming that is replacing all of the COBOL programming does allow that and easily allows us to deploy order entry to your iPad or to accounts payable to allow entry from an iPad or from a browser or from natively from a Mac computer. So all of the kinds of mobile applications that the market is demanding is all part of the development and the complete replacement of the drivetrain, if you will, of the Exact Macola product. So we covered quite a bit of this already. The Synergy CRM, workflow, human resources, document management, project management, unlimited events, the workspaces that I mentioned, there's over 40 of them. I think it's like either 41 or 45 different role-based workspaces for the controller and the purchasing manager and the accounts payable person and the material planner, and every one of them having a unique set of tools to work from and visual cues in terms of a dashboard. I can't emphasize enough, this is not just a new interface for Macola ES. That .NET programming is a significant undertaking. The reporting is now moving to SQL Server Reporting Services, that's SSRS. That's really an industry condition for two reasons. Number one, Microsoft SQL Server Reporting Services and Business Analytics are extremely powerful now. They probably weren't that way 6, 7 years ago. And SAP, who owns Crystal Reports, is becoming more protective of their technology, and they're not distributing the print engines and so forth, and they have indicated to the marketplace that they will not be developing and releasing another Crystal Reports print engine as the operating systems continue to advance. It will not be available. So they're basically telling us to go to Microsoft, and we've embraced that because it's consistent with the rest of the architecture. Web forms are the easiest way to get data into a system and to train people how to use things because it's just so much more intuitive, and it allows us to do it from remote, natively through a web client, a browser client. You can log on to your Macola system and enter an order now. The mobile enablement, it's actually currently available for iOS or for the entire Apple iPad and iPhones and so on. Android is coming out, I think it's end of third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter of this year. So you'll be able to do that with your Samsung phone now. The other important part of development is programming objects. These are APIs, or application program interfaces, that allows either your IT gurus or reseller organizations or Exact Direct to write custom applications to be able to do standard business functions. We're writing an incredible order entry system that's specific to a flooring company, for instance. It has all kinds of unique things. And another one that is specific to a company that produces the heat transfers for garments. And they have all kinds of things that they have to manage that need to be on the order entry screen. And so we can just connect with that programming interface. This is all happening in phases. There was 10.0 that was released on June 30th, 2014, 10.1, 12/31 of 2014, and 10.2. They've committed to every 6 months release a new point release with more development having been completed, and it's well down the road, as you're going to see. And 10.2 was just released June 30th, 2015. So now if I can switch gears for a moment. I do need to just make a quick change to the screen resolution. And move that back up. So this is Exact Macola 10. This is an example of one of the workspaces. And as you can see, this is the CEO workspace. And across the top here, there are a number of other workspaces that we can access. And depending on the individual's role, there can be only one or many different workspaces available for their viewing and use. The dashboard views of various things that would be important for a person in the role of CEO can be easily visible here. These are the ones that come out of the box. And on all 40 of these workspaces, they've been built out with some pretty useful tools. Now, these are all essentially nothing more than SSRS reports that have been converted to essentially what we call widgets, and then they're incorporated into this main page, this workspace page. But the interesting thing about these reports is that they're not just reports and graphs, they're interactive, meaning if I hover over this, I can see that, oh my goodness, we've got incoming cash of $833,000. Let me take a look at that, and I clicked on it, and I'm going to bring up our cash flow statement so that I can see the details of where that's all coming from. Or maybe I want to access something external, like our bank, and I can bring that up and be able to log into the bank and check on what it is that I need to look at. So it really doesn't matter what kind of tool. This is an open system, so to speak, to be able to incorporate things that are within the Exact Macola system, as well as things that are external to the system, so that I can do the job that I need to and have the tools available. If you notice across the top, there are a number of things that you might see in a normal system menu. For example, I might have to maintain certain things. So if I were to, if I had access to maintaining resources, I can do that. Resources meaning human resources, adding people. Of course, as the CEO, that's one of the things that I do. However, I don't do it very frequently, and quite often I have to refresh my memory. Well, what we have done, I'm referring to TiVo, is we've developed a whole series of training guides that allow you to document exactly how that should happen. So here's the process steps. Open maintain resources, click new, start by choosing the employee type, and so on. And these are just Word documents that have been uploaded into the document management system and then just attached to this menu item. These can be very customized. We have a whole series of them that are essentially standard. I'll bring up that listing. This is our internal document management system, and there's hundreds of them that we've created for pretty much every single menu pick within the system. And we provide those for our customers as they make their transition to EM10. So what we want to do is not only make this web-enabled so it's more intuitive, but we want to be able to put not only training guides, but perhaps even training videos available at a moment's notice. And here we are just launching a YouTube video that could explain to us what it is that we want to train somebody to do. So not only would we suggest that you evaluate your processes, we would suggest that they get documented so that you can retain all of this knowledge of how your system is supposed to work. So that's, a really good example. There are many things that might be on my menu because I do a lot of stuff. An example of another menu might be, this is another access method. This is what we refer to as core ERP. The person who does system administration may need to have certain things available to them, like kind of system things that rarely get done. We don't necessarily need to have that on a workspace, but we have access to all of that kind of information here through core ERP. Another example of a workspace is, here's one for an IT professional. So this might be the person who is assigned the task of managing your system, and they're looking for, the largest tables in the system so that they can see that, here's the size of the tables and all that technical stuff like most recent AS import messages, and who knows, I'm kind of over my pay grade when I come into this particular workspace, but this is an example of how another workspace might look. And that person may have access to maintaining users. That's one of the functions that they do. And so they add new users or disable users when there's a termination or something like that. So the workspace transition makes for a significant improvement in that user experience. Basically because they don't have to go jumping in and out of a bunch of modules or try to make their own favorites. You set up the security, you define roles in this system, and then create the workspaces to mirror that combination of security and roles so that when you have an accounts payable person, these are the things that they have access to. Great, put it all on their menu, and what we have done is we've actually developed that matrix. We have a starting point, but then you can change them at any time by just coming into configure menu and either creating a new one or deleting another one or move it up, whatever it might be that you want to do. Okay, a couple of the things that I mentioned that I wanted to quickly show you was the general ledger account structure. For those that are on Progression, this is going to be very different. For those that are on Macola ES, I apologize, this is pretty small, but this is a very, very different departure from the Progression format. notice when I open up this particular account, sales, professional bikes, when I set it up, I told it that it was a profit and loss account. I want it grouped within revenue, a subclassification of sales, and a further subclassification of product and service sales. In this manner, I'm telling it from a basic financial statement perspective, this is how I want it grouped. A balance sheet account might be asset, current asset, cash. The account might be General Disbursements, Bank of America. And I have another one for payroll disbursements, and those are both under those same three groupings. Now I can drill into or summarize financial statements naturally. Now the key, though, the key difference between the structure of the progression chart of account numbering and the EM10 chart of account numbering is that in progression, if I needed to have a breakdown of sales professional bikes between east and west and north and south, I would have to create a unique general ledger account and a parking place for it, included in the statement layout and the spec and so on. So if you do a quick count here, the main account plus all these other choices means I'd have to have 20 different general ledger accounts. Here, I can just make it either not active or not available in corporate, or I can make it available in corporate and add it. So it's either, it's basically a choice now that it's available for corporate as well as east as well as west, and the cost center, cost unit is the same as profit center and department, or department and profit center, depending on how you set them up. You do have a choice. There's some details that go into that decision, but it's a very different and much, much easier way to add an account and then make it valid in certain cost centers, cost units. One of the ways that you can now see your statements and work with your data, with your general ledger data, is through the interactive balance. The interactive balance, I can do this for months or quarters or years. I don't have to have all these separate layouts. I can show it as a trial balance, as a balance sheet profit and loss. I can focus on a particular customer or a particular warehouse or a cost center, or name it. Even a resource. So if I want to see by salesperson, I can see my profit and loss by salesperson. And notice that I'm also going to be able to see unprocessed, meaning sales transactions and inventory transactions and everything else that has happened that have not necessarily been finalized in the general ledger. So I can have a flash report at a moment's notice that gives me everything up to the minute. And this is the one I chose for months. And if you notice, it's giving me the normal breakdown of assets, current assets, cash, then accounts receivable, total accounts receivable. Wherever I provide a subclassification, I get a subtotal. And the beautiful part about this is, for those of you who have a simple financial reporting requirement, this can just be exported directly to Excel. Excel is your friend throughout this entire system. The Office add-in is available for not only uploading documents like Word documents and emails and so on, and associating it with a project or a customer or a name it. Now I have this sitting here in Excel, so I can do whatever I would like with it for further analysis. The Excel add-in allows me to create a number of different financial statement formats for whatever purpose, like the bank, taxes, the CPA, the internal people, the department reports, whatever. and save them off and then just refresh them at a moment's notice, that's a very handy tool. The Excel add-in also gives me access to the data. So I may access Excel from externally without even being in the system, so I do need to authenticate. And here, there's a number of reports, as you can see, that I can just run natively right here. But I'm going to look up data in a table, and let's say it's the customer master. I'm going to search for customer, and there's the customer file. And it's going to give me the customer number and the name. I want to know if I have, I don't know, do I have an email or an exempt number? I'm trying to get ready for a sales tax audit. And looks like I'm kind of low on exempt numbers. This is going to be a problem this time around. So I probably shouldn't, I should delay that audit as long as I can. The other very, very helpful function is what we call a SQL select. In every single crystal report that you're running in your company, you can actually view the SQL statement and copy it right into Excel here, right into the Excel add-in, and save off that report with parameters if you would like. And then it's just going to be basic, SQL query, select star from, or whatever the SQL statement is, no matter how complex, and allow you to run that report via Excel. So it eliminates a lot of crystal reports and brings you to a much more native reporting experience. I would like to kind of begin wrapping up the presentation part. The last thing I wanted to show was that the sales order entry can either be the client version or the web version. This is the one that you would utilize, say, from an iPad, or can be used right on a workstation. I can choose the customer, identify who the contact is that I'm selling this to. I'm going to sell this one to Harry Mason. He's the guy who placed this order. Save. Everything else is fine. I should probably put some internal notes here as well. Rush order, something like that. And work in a much more natural way of entering an order. So I think you can probably sit somebody down and say, hey, here's how you enter orders, and they can go, oh, this is pretty easy. And you go, yeah, right, it is. Because it's very, very natural. So that's kind of the top line. Remember I mentioned to you that not only are you getting all of the core ERP, but you're getting all of the rich functionality of the rest of Synergy. For example, you get the entire human resources suite. This is our live company. This is my record. This is all of the G2 about Len Rio and kind of things that are going on and the kind of things that he's supposed to be doing. It's a totally integrated solution. And you have the opportunity to also incorporate your customers or your vendors. Because I have admin rights, I'm going to become one of our customers. Pick one, anyone. And this is the access that we provide for our customers to their portal. And this is where we keep all the documentation of the software that's installed. This happens to be a progression user, and this is the version that they're on, and so on and so forth. So it becomes a very useful tool to have at your fingertips and in an integrated manner. all that said, I'd like to switch back now to our presentation and talk more about the whole process of upgrading and converting data. Let's just change the screen resolution again so that we recording. So I mentioned that if you're going to undertake this, this is a perfect time to kind of take a step back and take a look at the methods that you're using to manage everything that you do from the front door to the back. There's plenty of process improvement opportunities. The BPA questionnaire that we use has something like 640 questions or something like that about how you price your product and pay commissions and handle workflows and so on and so forth. There will be a lot of process improvement opportunities. And remember, you are going to have a significant number of new tools to be able to handle those requirements. So the challenge is going to be to prioritize it so that you can leverage those new tools. It will take a roadmap. We're going to have a phase 1 and a phase 2 and a phase 3. It's kind of a living document. But doing this will ensure the ROI on the project. I've actually seen situations where the customer was very anxious to keep everything as is, and it actually was harder to work around some of the new features than actually deploy what would be considered a best practice. So a couple of considerations. If you're on ES, it's a relatively short distance to upgrade to Macola 10. What we recommend is always a test upgrade and a clearly defined user acceptance test so that we can make sure that everything is operating exactly as you would expect and all the reports and everything ties out and so on. Once we pass that test, you can essentially just upgrade the program because behind the scenes, the old Macola ES interface is still there, is still available. And we need the Macola 10 program in place in order to be able to develop the workspaces and then transition the users to no longer use what we call the client interface and begin using the workspace as essentially their home page. It's a very easy transition. No one is reticent about making a change to a workspace. We've had actually some really enthusiastic acceptance of that transition. Because there may be new features or things that are now going to be deployed, we always want to include a relatively comprehensive training plan. You can then refine the dashboards. Remember, there are lots of things that are coming with the workspace that many of which may be really important for you to view, but there might be things that are kind of important for you to have on there as well. Operations information that is it's unique to your company. Like I want to know the heat that was in the sterilizing unit in a graph form by hour. So I'll know that, from a quality perspective, there was no variance in that particular operational consideration. And then it's really about expanding the use of EM10 over whatever period of time according to your unique roadmap, whether it's mobile applications or various parts of CRM, document management, whatever it might be that has a high degree of process improvement for either a revenue increase opportunity, a cost reduction opportunity, or some kind of compliance requirement. And they're going to fall in one of those three categories and have a return on investment for you. Now, in terms of the actual data conversion, progression is a little more complicated. The ES data does not require conversion. The progression data does. So you have a few choices. This is what we refer to as a full conversion. That's basically everything since the days of Macola 6 and Btrieve, it does everything except assets. Personally, I believe this is too much information. There's a lot of errors that are uncovered in the data, and because these errors that are uncovered in the data, it can get expensive to get those errors fixed because they just won't operate when you convert to Macola 10. Another option is master file. This is where only the master files, customers, vendors, items, bills of material, routings, you name it. Really good if you need to clean up a lot of data, because then you can go right through the interface and delete all the obsolete stuff. There's also the open year method. Now that brings over a minimal amount of financial information. It basically is as of the last progression close, which may have been in September, let's say. But it keeps all of the open orders, all the open items. If you do a master file, you'll need to re-enter the open AR, the open AP, the open orders, open purchase orders, and so on. One that I'm really partial to is what I call the do-over. This allows the cleanest, tightest database from the start, where basically we export your master files and bring them into Excel. So now you can take your list of customers, you can delete all of the people that are out of business, you can add some default data to those that may be important to you as you deploy the new system. Once you've cleaned up all of those master files, we can then import those to EM10 and then configure EM10 to fit your business. You still need to enter the open items, the open orders, set up the workspaces, the security, and so on, train the users, do a pilot test, plan the cutover, go live. Then we can come back and deal with converting the progression data to EM10 as a separate database and have all of the history there, but not worry about having to transact everything and everything having to tie out as perfectly as it would be if we were using that as our production environment. And we can even create SQL views so that you can have reports of sales history that are looking at the two different databases so that you have no disconnect in the important data that you may need to manage. In terms of a strategy for upgrading progression, I would first identify, well, what kind of data conversion strategy should we utilize? The answer is it depends on how much and how good your data is. Then perform that test upgrade, set up those users, reports, forms, all that kind of thing, deploy the workspaces. Because we've done a test upgrade, we can do user training with your data. No bicycles or anything like that. So it's very familiar, and we can compare progression transactions to EM10 transactions and make sure everything is jiving. Of course, pilot test, we never do anything without a pilot test and a complete user acceptance sign-off. Then essentially do the final conversion, the go-live support that's necessary, and then come back and convert the history. So that's a reasonable step-by-step approach to upgrading. At this time, you may have, and this is always the internal political discussion, I don't like our item numbering. Well, this is a crossroads when you can make some changes. Whether it's your general ledger accounts that you swore were created by that prior CFO who you thought was an alcoholic, who turned out to be just crazy and didn't know anything about general ledger. This is your opportunity to fix that and make it more conventional. Renumber your items, your customers, your vendors. There are utilities available for renumbering, and many things can be done via SQL scripting. I mentioned that we have a full library of training guides. This is really important and helpful for user training. And like I say, it's great to have those on all of those workspace menus so that people can review exactly what they should be doing when they forget. Alternatively, there's the Exact Learning Pass. It's not very expensive at all. That provides for there's some scheduled live webinar training. Obviously there's always a need for a consultant to come on site or provide remote training via GoToMeeting or whatever for your specific business's needs and deal with any implementation consulting at the same time. And we always recommend that you have power users so that you can have a train-the-trainer approach going forward to preserve your investment in training. If you're coming from Progression, I would plan on budgeting about 4 hours per financial module because that's where the significant changes are. So cash flow and general ledger and things like that. Not difficult, just very different than Progression. On the distribution and manufacturing side, it's not very different. The functionality is very, very similar, and a lot of that was preserved. So, you know, an hour per application perhaps just to show people where the menu functions are and so on. What you're going to find is the workspaces are intuitive. Ordinarily, when you're training people, you have to show them, you have to go here, then you have to go there. This is going to be much more obvious, so don't hunt and peck all over the place. If you are going to be expanding the use of the Macola 10 system and adding CRM and workflow management and documents and projects and human resources and so forth, there needs to be a budget for that. You know, at least half a day to a day on those topics. And if you're coming from ES, you know, really it's just the workspaces and maybe some of the forms that are going to be new and different. So that's part of the consideration in terms of training. Again, if you're going to be expanding the system or changing processes, that needs to be taken into consideration. Reports and forms, you should know that Crystal Reports is being replaced with SQL Server reporting services. I mentioned that earlier. That's not an Exact Macola decision. That's an industry occurrence. SAP has decided they don't want to continue developing Crystal Report print engine and distributing that to the rest of their competition to use it. And Microsoft has frankly come out with better tools. Microsoft Business Intelligence and reporting services and such are actually pretty strong. Wasn't the case 6, 7, 8 years ago. Most of your Crystal reports will be able to be converted. Even though a lot of the tables are different in EM10 from Progression especially, there are views that allow those to continue to work. Some of your Crystal forms may also convert. You can copy them and bring them over. Even the standard forms might be convertible as well. Those can be imported. A couple of other considerations. Supported platforms. I'm going to, in the sake of time, I'm going to skip over that. There is a document out there. Just so you know, Windows Server 2003 is no longer supported. SQL 2005 is no longer supported. Windows XP is clearly not supported. And with Exact Macola 10.2, SQL Server 2014 is now supported. So 2014, 2012, 2008 are 2, not SQL 2008. But there's a document on the customer portal, and we can send you that if you need that. Alternatively, this might be a good opportunity to consider cloud hosting. Whenever there's a point in time when it's time for the hardware refresh cycle, it makes sense to take a look at the financial picture as for cloud hosting compared to making that investment and continuing to stay in the IT business yourself. So I'd like to bring up a document that will explain the upgrade pricing. And first of all, the upgrade pricing it's banded pricing, meaning based on the number of users, the pricing is different. And for existing Macola customers, there are 3 different groups, 1, 2, and 3, where group 1 owns, let's just say, Macola Progression or ES, nothing else, no synergy, and they're upgrading to EM10. That's the most expensive condition, and it starts at $14.40 per user and goes down to as little as $9.60. Group 2 is if you own Progression or Macola ES and you have synergy already. Now the price drops to $9.60 to $4.50, depending on the number of users. And there are many of you out there that actually own Progression or ES with the what was formerly called Navigator. It's now referred to as configurable workspaces. That's the least expensive, and that's anywhere from $200 to $120 per user. The maintenance policy, the bad news is, if whatever your maintenance is, it's not going to go down. And basically, just to cut to the chase instead of all these words, the most it can go up is a 25% increase. So there's a little bit of calculation that has to go on, but there's a tremendous amount of additional software and services that are being offered as part of this. So that's kind of the band, either where you are today or at most a 25% increase. A little bit on consulting costs, just so that we can you can round out the picture just a bit. Oops, there we go. The answer is, again, it depends, but if you're on Macola ES, the cost is going to be less because there's no data conversion. I would say a reasonable budget for consulting services might be in the 80 to 120 hours range to make sure that this gets done, gets implemented, and you can leverage some of these new features and get a return on investment. If you're using Progression, it's probably more in the 100 to 140 hours so that the initial data conversion and final data conversion and all that cleanup, all of that can be taken care of. Now the deal, the special deal. Exact offered this, I think, at the beginning of second quarter, and it's actually concluding on September 30th. For all Progression and Macola ES sites, you can increase the number of users by 50% at no charge. So if you have 20 users of Progression, you would pay the 20 times whatever that is. All I can remember is 1440, but it would be lower than that, 1320. 20 times 1320, and essentially you would get 30 EM10 users. Same thing holds true for Macola ES. Included with that, Ativo includes the eBiz credit card integration. The PC Charge software is no longer compatible with Exact Macola 10. And I believe Payware, if you were to go that route, is about $3,100. So ordinarily, the eBiz integration is $12.95, and we include that at no charge. But just to point out that upgrade, the 50% more users offer is ending on September 30th. Timing is actually pretty good. If you wanted to take advantage of this offer, whether or not you began the implementation right away or not, you'd be able to continue using Progression And because you want to take a little bit of time to think about how you're going to implement EM10, you've got the entire fourth quarter to think that through and maybe start fresh at the beginning of the year. So it's actually pretty good timing. That concludes what we were going to discuss about EM10 and the upgrade process and all the considerations. We'd like to do more of these, so if you feel inclined, we would like to know, hey, what else would you like to see? Anything more about EM10, about the whole process, some of the details we discussed. And you can certainly help us with referrals to anyone else that you know that can use help with their systems as well. So at this point, I'm going to kind of open it up to questions. And
great. Thanks, Len. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that product demonstration and really get into some really good quality depth there. We did have actually quite a few questions that came in over chat, so I'd like to get to those first. I am also going to open up everyone's phone lines as well. Just ask that if you do have a question, don't be shy. We'll all moderate and sort it out. I'm going to start, though. We had a couple of questions regarding maintenance. Essentially, the questions revolved around, in order to qualify for the discounted pricing, does the maintenance have to be current, and is the upgrading covered under current maintenance agreements?
okay, first of all, you do have to be current on maintenance. In other words, in order to be able to take advantage of the upgrade pricing. So if your maintenance bill is due, or if it's past due, it will have to be paid. And in some cases, if it's really old, it might be a reinstatement fee. In some cases, it might even be more cost-effective to just purchase the system new, but that'd be a unique situation.
Okay. We had a really great question when you were going over the data conversion. Is there a flexible data conversion method where, let's say they wanted to bring over several years worth of one type of data, but a different type of data they maybe only want to bring over a couple of years worth? Is there a flexible option there?
Actually, there is. In fact, one of the recommendations is that if you're going to do a full conversion, we always suggest purging the data using the purge utility that's available through Leahy Consulting. And that gives you a selection screen where you identify how much of each type of data you want to retain. So sales history, you might want to keep 5 years of. Purchase history, maybe only 2 years. And you run down this grid and identify exactly what those are. And essentially, it will keep just the amount of data that you would like to retain. And then we do the conversion, and that's all it comes over to EM10.
I have a few compatibility questions. The first one is EM10, does it work with F9 financial reports?
Yes, there's a small upgrade charge for F9, but F9 works extremely well with EM10. Keep in mind, you might also use it in conjunction with the Excel add-in, because the Excel add-in is very much like F9. So you be at a crossroads there as to whether or not you want to replace it all or continue using F9.
Sticking with kind of a third-party compatibility, one of the callers is currently using YSYS with their progression system. What's the data conversion process involved there? What are the requirements if they're running YSYS?
Oh, okay. YSYS actually is a piece of cake. When there's a small license change that gets made, and very few, a couple of small utilities that have to be run regarding the differences in the tables used between Progression and EM10. But by and large, it's like one of the easiest things you can do in this upgrade. It was working, and so the WISES system continues to work exactly the way it did with Progression. A little bit of magic behind the scenes, and then it's all of a sudden working in EM10. It's actually pretty slick the way they did that.
And then just one more compatibility consideration. Have 15 trading partners running an EDI solution. Are there any special considerations that they need to take into account as far as porting those over?
Oh,
Data masons.
Data masons, yeah, that's also a very easy conversion as well, because data masons, nothing changes in the data masons SQL tables, and just redirect masons interface essentially to Macola 10 order entry as compared to Progression order entry.
Okay. And there was one, actually a couple people, I guess you can call it concern that with EM10, there's I guess a concern that they're paying for modules that they don't necessarily need because it's an all-in-one package. How would you address that?
Yeah, that argument goes both ways, I guess. It's kind of like Microsoft Word. I've never created a macro in Microsoft Word, but that feature is there, and some people use it and some people don't. What my experience since, over the past 23 years has been, well, we really would like to implement shop floor. What does that cost? Oh, well, gee, you have to get shop floor, you have to get this, you have to get that. So it's like, that's 10 grand. No, we can't do that. I think you're in a better position from a licensing perspective to have an all-in product than a Chinese menu product. So it's kind of like that. Basically, use what you need, grow into it, never use it. It's your option.
Those were our chat questions. Is there anyone still on the call that maybe wants to shout out a specific question while we have Len on the line?
Yeah, hi, this is Mike over here at Tricep. I got a quick question regarding some other add-ons that we're currently running. We're actually using a couple of Link products, Visual Planner and Workforce Manager. Would that have to be considered as well?
Yeah, the Link products are very similar to WISES. Visual Planner, Workforce Manager, and so forth, they're connecting to database tables that are largely unchanged. So it's really just a configuration change within Link that will allow you to manage that data in Macola 10 as compared to ES or Progression.
Okay, and we're on ES currently, so it's probably going to be a little bit of an easier step.
Yeah, it's almost invisible, in fact, because there is no data conversion. So it'll be kind of, as I say, just very, very transparent.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
I have one question. Understand that the ES conversion is no big deal, but what if you have ES and Synergy? It's possible. I mean, which customer master would you use? The one that Synergy contains or the one that Macola contains?
Okay, you did say Synergy Enterprise, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Actually, that decision has already been made, and those tables should be completely synchronized. Now, there is still that AS import utility that is included for parts of Exact Macola 10. It's been eliminated in a lot of areas like items and projects and so on, but accounts are still controlled by AS import. And the best practice and our recommendation is always to set AS import where CRM, Synergy, is the master. And the reason for that is most people are also entering leads and promoting them to prospects, and then quoting the prospects, and then promoting them to customers, and to keep all the numbering straight, that's the best practice direction to utilize AS import for. That's
well, so what do
away.
you have? Do you have like 2 SIPI tables, or how does that work?
I know that the SIPI is the table in Synergy. I don't know the name of the table in the core ERP system, but it definitely is getting updated by the SIPI data.
Gotcha.
Anyone else want to shout out a question?
Hello, I have one. We're currently on Macola ES. How different are the tables in Macola 10? The reason I'm asking is we have lots and lots of crystal reports that this place runs on, and that have to be, converted.
The tables between ES and EM10 are almost identical. I'm trying to think of where there might be differences. If you're using Synergy as well, right?
Correct.
Synergy Enterprise. So if you have Synergy Enterprise in place and Macola ES, there is no difference that I'm aware of. The programs, on the other hand, are very different. And there's probably lots of peripheral things like workspace tables, workspace files that have been added. But in terms of crystal reports that are using sales history and inventory and all those kinds of things that you typically do, there's no difference whatsoever, and the database is going to remain named exactly the same. So there's no, you wouldn't even have to touch your crystal reports. Think of an upgrade from ES to EM10 as just like upgrading ES to the next version. That's really all it is from a technical perspective.
I guess one more question would be, what if you don't go to EM10? Is Exact going to quit investing into S9?
Well, yes. Think of it this way. They have, first of all, Exact is not announced any sunsetting of any products. However, if you look at the distribution of customers, there's a large number of Progression, a relatively smaller number, maybe half that number of ES, and probably the same number of ES customers now on EM10. A lot of the ES customers are flocking to EM10, and a lot of Progression customers, we're kind of surprised, are moving up to EM10 as well. At some point, as business people, they have to make a determination, are the maintenance dollars that are coming from either Progression or ES greater than the cost that it's taking us to continue development on this product, to roll forward new operating systems and features, and have people that are in support to be able to support and so forth, or not. I think ES is the one that's going to go away first. And that's just Len Rio thinking out loud. But there's no formal announcement from Macola, from Exact, to that effect. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but there's a lot of, I think there's still a lot of time that has to go by before that'll happen.
I've got a really quick question for you. As far as we're running ES currently, and we have some customized screens. They would have to be re-customized in EM, correct?
No, they would not have to be. Those custom screens would remain in place, as would any flexibility that's in place. The EM10 upgrade does not disturb the ES code in those areas whatsoever. Now, that said, there are some screens in EM10 where that traditional client screen has been replaced with a web form. And there are many where there's both a web form and the traditional client screen. We saw order entry, for example. That has a web form, but it also has the traditional client screen. So if you have modified the order entry screen, for example, that screen is still going to be available to you. But if you go over to some of the maintenance functions, you might find, oh, wait, this is just a web form. Where's the standard one? It's no longer there.
Okay. Well, thanks. Another quick one. Would we have to install any clients, or is it all browser web-based?
There is still a client installation to be done. That said, however, for many of the functions, like certainly anything that was Synergy before, like CRM and so on, that just needs a browser. And any of the functionality that has been replaced as a web form, like order entry, can now be accessed without loading a client on the local workstation. So you can do order entry from an internet cafe in the Bahamas if you'd like.
Okay, and one more quick question. I know I've had a few already. Are the reports client-based, or are they will they reside on the network? I believe currently they're sitting on the client machine.
The Crystal reports, you're correct. Those get loaded down to the client. The SSRS reports are stored at the server.
Gotcha. Okay, that's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If that's all the questions, just want to kind of repeat some of the administrative details. The slide presentation, the slide deck, is basically available immediately. If you look at the slide that's presented on your screen right now, at the bottom, info@ativoconsulting.com. You can send an email there requesting it. You can email me directly, Greg, G-R-E-G, @ativoconsulting.com. We'd be happy to send you the slide deck. We also have been recording this webinar. Probably will be able to get that converted and uploaded tomorrow afternoon, Monday morning at the latest. So again, if you would like a copy of this the recorded presentation as well, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We'd be happy to share that with you. With all of that having been said, again, I want to thank Len for presenting today. I want to thank everyone who joined us today on the call. I know we went a little bit over, but I think we really had a good deep dive and good discussion on EM10 and kind of the process of upgrading. So with that said, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will be in touch.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.